Hi guys, welcome back to our Navigraph series. I'm going to start on a different note and then we'll lead right into my standard intro for the series. I want to thank the flight sim community and my subscribers for their kind words, comments, suggestions, and support that I've received for the videos, and just say that I enjoy reading and responding to each and every one of you. If you have a question outside the scope of this video, please feel free to ask. If you do enjoy them, throw me a like and subscribe. I've also arranged this video and the whole series with chapters so that you can skip ahead or back as you see fit. So you can jump right in if you like and skip my boilerplate intro, for instance, and pass the history section if you're not interested. Speaking of boilerplate intros, I want to say that I'm in no way affiliated with Navigraph or Microsoft, either as an employee or sponsor of either or any of the products they offer. I do, however, enjoy them in simulated flight and want to share that passion with a number of people, being introduced to more accurate flight simulation with the introduction of Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. This is the third video in a series that will walk you through from a basic understanding of what Navigraph is to an explanation of charts, procedures, and plates and how to use them to fly an IFR plan or route. Please have a look in the description for a full list of all the videos in this series. This video series is by no means a complete and comprehensive description or use of charts or plates, and is designed for flight simulation enthusiasts to get a primer on using and interpreting chart data as presented in Navigraph. This video and the information in Navigraph should not be used by pilots or those training to be pilots. There, that's my disclaimer. In our previous video, we looked at IFR on route low and high altitude charts and how to read them. In this video, we will have a look at the terminal procedure charts that you will find with the Jeppesen charts in Navigraph. In Navigraph, we are very lucky to be provided with Jeppesen charts. For those not familiar with Jeppesen, they are the oldest and largest aviation charting provider in the world, operating for over 80 years and serving over 1 million pilots globally. They were also the first company to offer any type of navigational charts for aviation, and have included an interesting article link in the comments below that describes Jeppesen's humble beginnings and history if you are interested. You will also come across many people in the simulation community who will tell you that the charts are freely and easily available from sources like NAV Canada and the FAA, but to state this so simply is to ignore the difference between Jeppesen charts and their global availability within Navigraph. Yes, you can easily find and use freely published charts. No, they are not the same, and no, you will not find free Jeppesen charts. So what is the difference, and why might you want to use Jeppesen charts? 1. To closely match what you might be using in real life. There are a few airline companies in the world who don't subscribe to Jeppesen charts. Even airliners who publish their own charts for various reasons use Jeppesen charts for airports that their company doesn't have published charts for. One of the biggest reasons for me is that it's convenient. I don't have to pre-plan what country or airports I'm flying into or out of, and then find where those charts are published under which transportation authority. Yes, the US, Canada, Australia, all easy to find their charts and maps on English websites. How about Bangkok, or navigating the Transport Authority website for Japan in a foreign language? Jeppesen charts are also updated within the Navigraph every 28 days according to the real-life AIRAC cycle, so your charts are always up to date. One of the biggest for me is the ease of use. The whole idea behind Jeppesen charts and plates is to reduce pilot workload. Jeppesen airport diagrams, for instance, provide all the information on one page or sometimes two that the FAA would publish in numerous different areas over pages and pages of documents. Technically, the information is all there, but to try and find it quickly while being vectored to a different approach by ATC last second, well, that's another story. Also very important is consistency across charts and plates. Information for Indonesia, to Denmark, to Canada, or anywhere in between is going to be laid out in the exact same manner. Once you learn Jeppesen's system, you'll be able to read charts anywhere in the world and be able to translate that knowledge to real life if you like. Jeppesen charts consider the information you need as a pilot and what you are most likely to want on a single page, and provides that to you in a consistent manner globally. Yes, the FAA terminal procedures will tell you what type of lighting system is on runway 05, but Jeppesen shows you that as a drawing on the airport diagram instead of being buried in an arbitrary location somewhere in a large document. Hunting through pages of FAA terminal procedures to gather 3 pieces of information is not as fun as just viewing a single Jeppesen chart to quickly identify your needs. There are many more differences and pros, including cons, of Jeppesen charts, many based on pilot preferences and past experiences that we will not explore here, but rest assured that if you are learning Jeppesen charts in Navigraph, you are gaining real-life charting experience used by a majority of pilots worldwide. If you find yourself in a forum with opinions along the lines of Jeppesen charts are a waste because they can be found free elsewhere, know that this is not true and void of context, and ask yourself, would you rather be simming or compiling free charts and being restricted to areas that you can find them for? I hope that adds some context to a topic I see brought up frequently in the forums from people in regards to both Navigraph and Jeppesen. A subscription and Navigraph isn't for everyone. I do understand that, but there is no alternative at the moment if you want to use Jeppesen charts for your simulation IFR routing. It's more a question of how important are procedures and IFR flying to you in simulation and how accurately you want to simulate this side of a real flying experience. Now, let's have a look at the terminal procedure charts that you will find with Jeppesen charts. These are essentially fourfold. These are SID charts, or Standard Instrument Departure Routes, also known as departure charts, or DP, used for departing an airport under instrument flight rules. STAR charts, or Standard Terminal Arrival charts, used for arriving at an airport or towards a runway approach under instrument flight rules. And IAP, or Instrument Approach Procedure Charts, or plates, which provide the necessary information to execute instrument approaches to airports and or specific runways at larger airports. And finally, airport diagrams, which can provide all types of information and are designed to assist in the movement of ground traffic and complex runway or taxiway configurations, including parking and de-icing locations and ramp locations, gates, things like that. We'll take a look at these in the order that we may be using them when filing for an instrument flight rule plan. We are going to use two airports for these examples, CNC3 in Brampton-Caledon, Ontario, Canada, just outside of Toronto, which is a nice example of a smaller regional airport. And if you follow my videos, you'll know that I like flying out of CYYZ or Toronto Pearson International Airport, not too far from the first as an example of a much larger international terminal. First, airport info charts or diagrams. In this case, we are going to quickly find the airport we are looking for by using the search tool. CNC3, Brampton-Caledon. In the information panel, click the Open Charts, the pink button. In the airport charts area, we have a few tabs named Star, App, Taxi, SID, and Ref. We can also favorite this airport for later use by clicking the star, and go to the airport on the map if we haven't selected it already. In this case, a smaller regional airport, we have a single airport info chart. Let's have a look. Here we have our Jeppesen 10-9 airport chart for CNC3 or Brampton-Caledon Airport. For now, don't worry too much about what all the information means. We'll take a look at this in our next video on airport info charts specifically. Airport charts presented to you in this tab are going to be everything ground related, like taxi information or potential hazards like construction or heavy traffic areas and advisories. In this airport specifically, I wanted to point something out. Notice if we click the SID tab for Standard Instrument Departures, there are no departures listed for CNC3. Many times with smaller airports, you can find departure procedures at the bottom of the airport info charts or airport diagrams or 10-9s like we have here. In this case, our departure on runway 33 has us climb heading 326 degrees to 1700 feet. Let's take a look at a larger international airport like CYYZ or Toronto Pearson International. Under the tab Taxi, we have a lot of information. Of most interest to us is the airport info chart, or 10-9. Again, these numbers or references will be explained in following videos. We look down the list for 10-9, or airport info, and here we are. There's a lot of information on this airport info chart, so much in fact that it refers to other charts. For example, runway incursion hotspots, at the top left here. See 10-9A, the A after 10-9 meaning it's supplemental information. Intersection departure runway lengths is at top right, and this will give us the length of a runway if we say taxi onto it at a specific taxi intersection. The runway may be 10,000 feet, for instance, but if we intersect it at a certain taxiway near the middle, the new runway length might be closer to 6,000 feet. So this gives us that information before we take off from an intersecting portion of the runway. Along with our standard 10-9 airport chart, we have a number of others. For the most part, for the purpose of simulation, we are only concerned with the 10-9 charts and their supplements. All of the other information under the taxi tab, like standard minimums for instance, can be found on other charts for our purposes. We'll have an in-depth look at the 10-9 charts in our fourth video in this series on airport charts specifically. We'll now look at SID charts, or Standard Instrument Departure Routes, also known as Departure Charts or DP, used for departing an airport under instrument flight rules, and that particular airport's terminal procedures. These can be found, of course, under the SID tab. Now, departures and arrivals can at first glance seem even more overwhelming than the airport charts, in my opinion. Don't worry, with a simple understanding of them and how they work, which I'll provide in the fifth video in this series after airport charts, we'll make sense of these in no time. Let us have a quick look at one of these charts and how Navigraph can help to visualize them. First, notice that each SID starts with 10-3. Remember our airport chart was a 10-9? I hope that you are starting to realize that there is a numbering system to Jeppesen charts now. Our first 10-3 is ANCAL 4 departure, and this is how you may refer to them. If we click the chart, it allows us to take a quick look. Again, we will discuss SID charts in full in our fifth video, so don't worry if you don't understand everything you're seeing here. I will point out that the departure charts are not randomly named. Notice the waypoint ANCAL, just north of Hamilton Airport, and this is called the ANCAL 4 chart for good reason. Also notice the small airport diagram for reference. Let's take a look at a few more, like BOMET 7 overlay. If we click the overlay icon instead of on the map tile, it places the chart on the high or low en route chart depending on what you have selected. Again, notice the BOMET waypoint on the BOMET departure. You also have what is called transitions leading from it, which we will discuss in lesson 105. One more important thing to take notice on these charts in general is that not every part of these charts are to scale, or not at all. Notice the 20 nautical mile from Davzi to Tessuc, and the Tessuc to Talib is 21 nautical miles. These charts are meant for external navigation guidance to each waypoint, not necessarily georeferences. Now, how would one go about picking the proper departure depends on a number of things. Which runway are you departing from? What direction is your flight plan taking you after the departure? Airports like Toronto Pearson International have all these options and pretty much every combination of them covered, which is why you have so many departure charts. Smaller airports like CNC3, the first airport we looked at, may have a single standard departure for each runway regardless of your flight plan. Although we will discuss picking the proper departure in lesson 104 on SID charts, Navigraph does have a great visualization of this to help you plan. If we click Show Overview, we can quickly see every departure available to us at CYYZ. Here we have our ANCAL 4 departure in gold, and if we click it, you can see that, ANCAL 4. And if we move over to the top right here, we have our BOMET 7 in green. So we can quickly visualize both of those departures. We can click that departure if we want to see its chart and overlay it on our map. Again, we will go over this in more detail in later lessons. Very similar to SID charts, STAR charts or Standard Terminal Arrival Charts used for arriving at an airport or towards a runway approach under instrument flight rules are found, of course, in the STAR tab. Notice how they all start with 10-2. Like the SID charts, they have a similar naming scheme also. Our Boxum 5 arrival chart for runway 05 and 06 left and right have the Boxum waypoint with transitions that diverge into Boxum for arrivals instead of out from Boxum for departures. The arrows always indicate the only direction you can fly these waypoints. You can now also start to understand from our previous lesson 102 in the series on en-route charts why there are random waypoints all over the en-route maps that do not always coincide with charted airways. Although these nav aids serve many purposes, a number of them support surrounding airports and their departure and arrival procedures. We'll now overlay our IMEBA 5 approach for runways 05 and 06 left and right. Like our SID charts, we can visualize these on the map and select and overlay the appropriate charts. For both SID and STAR charts, we can see these appropriate waypoints that will be added to our flight plan in the aircraft by clicking the Show Waypoints checkbox. Note, these waypoints do not show in the flight plan above in Navigraph as they are part of the procedure. Lastly, IAP, or Instrument Approach Procedure Charts, provide the necessary information to execute instrument approaches to airports and specific runways. If we click the Approach tab on CYYZ, we can see all the options for each runway with their heading in gray. Notice we have 4 different approaches for runway 05 at Toronto Pearson, ILS runway 05, which is a Category 1, which would be your smaller general aviation aircraft, ILS Cat 2 and 3 runway 05, which we will explain in Lesson 107 along with a more detailed look at these IAPs. Also notice the Jeppesen chart numbering scheme. ILS approaches start with 11. And 2 GPS approaches, Z and X, they both start with 12. Once you start to pick up the numbering scheme, it starts to become easier to find the charts you are looking for. Take note that when more than one procedure to the same runway uses the same type of navigation system for lateral guidance, a non-repeating alpha suffix using the letters S through Z is applied to the approach. They're normally but not always assigned in reverse order starting with Z. So don't confuse these with A, B, C, D categories for flying approaches at different speeds, which we'll discuss later. If we click on ILS runway 05 or chart 11-1, we get a detailed view of the procedures and information required to fly this approach. Most importantly to many starting out is the ILS localizer frequency for this runway named ITX at Pearson, found in the top left and in the bubble in the diagram, which shows the exact runway heading, localizer or ILS frequency as some may refer to it, and its ident. These also can be overlaid onto the Navigraph on route charts and visualized. One last thing to mention before we wrap up is this little notice at the top of our airport charts area that says, this airport has Airline CAO charts. CAO charts can be subscribed to by airlines who generally fly Class C and D aircraft and are available in Navigraph. If you are flying Category C airlines or jets, or Class D large airliners and military aircraft all the time, you may want to switch to this. Category A, small single engines, or B, small multi-engines, or twins, should be using the normal IFR charts. So you can do this by going to Settings and changing the chart mode. You'll have to close the Charts pane and reopen it for the charts to show. When in this mode and selecting a smaller airstrip, you'll notice a similar message about the airport not having airline charts. Luckily in this case, it'll show the normal charts automatically, so you don't have to switch it in the settings again. The CAO charts, however, are not shown unless selected in the settings area, so just be aware of that. For the purpose of all these tutorials, we'll be using standard charts, and I will do a video at the end of the series about the differences between them. That being said, if you are flying primarily heavies or jets, rest assured that all the information you need is provided on both types of charts and is all relevant. Airline charts just sort of cater to the airlines by removing unnecessary Class A and B information from the charts to prevent confusion and reduce workload. There's really no reason for having the Class A and B information on these CAO charts for the airliners. They're never going to be doing an approach at 50 knots. In our next video in the series, we'll take a deeper look at Jeppesen 10-9 charts or airport diagrams and how to read them. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and giving a thumbs up. Thanks, guys. Honestly, I appreciate all the comments and corrections and suggestions. See you in the next video.